Good evening. If you would like to include closed captioning to this presentation, please click the three dots found at the top right of the toolbar. In the drop-down menu, select Turn on Live Captions. Welcome to Southern California Edison's Wildfire Safety Community Livestream Meeting. My name is Jendi Birchfield, Vice President of Customer Operations at Southern California Edison. Thank you for joining us today for SCE's 2025 Wildfire Safety Community Meeting. We're joined today by our presenters and subject matter experts from wildfire, grid hardening, meteorology and fire science, PSPS operations, business resiliency, PSPS customer support, as well as local public affairs. A couple of housekeeping items while participants are still coming in. This is the second of 2 community meetings this month, with the same information being provided in each session. The cameras and microphones have been disabled for this call. If you have questions, please click on the Q&A icon and select Ask a Question and type in your question. Due to the volume of attendees and questions, the Raise Your Hand feature will not be utilized during this meeting. We will answer questions in the chat or during the QA portion of the program. Participants can also upvote the items they wish to have answered. We will answer as many questions as we can. If you have questions specific to your neighborhood, please email us or put in the QA with your email address, and we will follow up with you directly. Our team will monitor the QA and provide responses for questions that are relevant to this presentation. Now let's get started with safety. In line with emergency preparedness, we have a very special video message from Orange County Fire Authority Chief Brian Fennessy. Please play the video.
Hello, my name is Chief Brian Fennessy. I'm Chief of the Orange County Fire Authority. Thank you, Southern California Edison, for the opportunity to share this public safety message on behalf of fire officials and emergency services agencies in and around Southern California. An emergency can happen at any time. You can help your family be prepared for any situation with a safety preparedness plan, some basic supplies, and advanced planning. Whether it's a wildfire, an earthquake, or an electrical outage impacting your community, preparedness will help everyone cope better and stay safer. Firefighters train hard to prepare for wildfires. Residents need to do the same thing. Take personal responsibility and learn what you can do today. You can start by consulting one of many guides online to develop you and your family's individual plan. Here in Orange County, we have the Ready, Set, Go initiative, which gives you the tools to protect you, your family, property, and community from wildfires. Please visit our website or your own local fire agency's website for tips on how to stay informed and prepare for wildfires and other emergencies in your community. Be sure to sign up and update your contacts for email and text alerts from your local emergency preparedness agencies, such as Alert OC in Orange County, Alert LA in Los Angeles County, and VC Alert in Ventura County. You also need to make sure you are signed up to receive SCE email and text alerts about outages near you, including Public Safety Power Shutoffs. Finally, to get ready for PSPS incidents, when SCE must de-energize power lines to prevent potential ignitions, be sure to take advantage of the various programs and tips SCE will be discussing in today's meeting. Remember, preparedness is a shared responsibility. By taking action now to prepare for disasters and emergency situations, we can protect ourselves, our families, and our communities. Thank you.
I would also like to thank Orange County Fire Authority, Los Angeles County Fire, and Ventura Fire for their partnership operating a fleet of firefighting helicopters provided by SCE. These helicopters, which are known as the Quick Reaction Force, operate year-round, 24 hours a day to help combat wildfires and keep communities safe. Again, A heartfelt thanks to Chief Fennessy for his important message and their continued partnership. Moving to the next slide, the theme for today's meeting is preparedness for public safety power shutoffs or PSPS outages. So we thought we would start with a safety discussion about how to prepare for extended outages, which could be PSPS outages, but also could happen in natural or man-made disasters. So it's always good to be prepared, to have a resilient home. Ensure you have backup lighting and flashlights, a stock of extra batteries to keep your devices powered. Make sure you have non-perishable food items readily available for emergencies. Store warm blankets to stay comfortable during outages, and make sure you have your to-go bag, which is an emergency bag with essentials, including a change of clothes. And also make sure your family members have a plan for evacuation, you have emergency supplies, and you know how you're going to respond during an emergency. Being proactive and prepared for emergencies can significantly reduce risk and ensure your family's safety. In the end, your safety and your family's safety is what matters most. Now, let's jump right into the content for today, starting with a little background on public safety power shutoffs, what we refer to as PSPS. Now, safety is our top priority. When the risk of wildfires is high, PSPS is necessary to save lives and protect communities. The threat of extreme weather and potential for wildfire to spread into communities means that more frequent and longer use of PSPS may be required this year, including in areas that have not experienced PSPS in the past. Losing power for any amount of time is a hardship. While it's frustrating and inconvenient, safety must come first. We continue to invest heavily in resiliency measures, including undergrounding power lines, installing coated wire called covered conductor, clearing vegetation near power lines, inspecting equipment for repairs and maintenance, and integrating advanced technologies to reduce the risk of wildfires by utility equipment. Understanding the importance of PSPS in reducing wildfire risk, now let's delve into the significant increase in acres burned in California over the past decade. Destructive wildfires in California look remarkably different than they used to. Looking at this slide, you can see the magnitude of change in wildfires in just the last 10 years. 15 of the 20 most destructive fires in California history have occurred since 2020 or since 2015. We have always had forest fires in California, but the scale of destruction has changed regardless of the source. Wildfires are now occurring more frequently in neighborhoods, not just forests. It's notable that we've already seen wildfires in the past month, even before the peak summer heat. So to talk more about the fire weather story, let me now introduce Paul Roller, our company's chief fire scientist. Paul?
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining today. I'm very honored to be able to talk to you about the weather forecasting that we do here at SCE and also what the fire scientists do as well. Next slide. All right, so one of the very first things that we did and are continuing to do is bolstering our situational awareness capabilities. Right now, we have over 1,800 weather stations that we've installed across the territory that give us feedback on the environmental conditions such as temperature, humidity, and of course, wind speed. That gives us feedback every 10 minutes, and that helps us keep track of what's actually going on out in the environment. We do also have weather modeling and fuel modeling. These go out to 7 days and help us, they're in-house and they help us keep track of the forecast going forward and when we should be really concerned about a weather system coming up. We also do fuel sampling that feeds into those fuel model forecasts, and we do have 16 fuel sampling sites with more planned to be installed later. But we only have 16 because we also have the government has sampling sites of their own. So we're putting sampling sites in to help fill the gaps where there's not already fuel sampling sites. And lastly, we do have our Wildfire HD cameras that we've installed 200 of across our territory. Now these cameras help monitor for smoke and help detect fires. Next slide. Okay, so little bit more about our weather forecasting and our forecasting capabilities. We do have a team of meteorologists. Right now, I think we're up to 8. Might be adding a few more to help staff up for these bigger events. And here we look at weather conditions, and we also do forecasts for the future to help forecast for these PSPS conditions. We also have a team of fire scientists that help analyze the state of the fuels and forecast those fuels going forward as well and how they interplay with each other. Next slide. Now, talking a little bit more about the monitoring. Once we're in a PSPS event, we do have those 1,800 weather stations that I mentioned, and those help us monitor the conditions and proactively de-energize circuits when we do see weather conditions approaching levels of concern. Now, we also have our forecasts that go out those up to 7 days that help us pinpoint areas to focus on. And so we'll also be monitoring all those locations. Now on the left, on this map on the left here, they're showing our map of 1,800 weather stations in and near HFRA, high fire hazard areas. So you can see it's quite dense across our territory. And we use a dashboard, which you'll see on the right, bottom right, that helps us monitor all the conditions that those weather stations are reporting. Next slide. Now talking about our fuel spread modeling, we take our weather forecasts and our fuels and run fire simulations across the whole service territory to help determine the impact a wildfire might have on one of our communities. And we do this in a couple of ways. We can use a model to model individual fires once they have already started to see if they might impact our facilities, our infrastructure, and maybe we might have to de-energize our lines before that fire gets close to it. We also try to, when we finish a PSPS, we also like to monitor and look at what happened where we did turn off the circuit, right? So if we turned off a circuit for PSPS conditions and we see damage on that circuit after we're patrolling it before we restore it to be energized, we want to see what could have happened if that line had been energized and so that debris hit it and caused the ignition, right? So we want to see what kind of fires we are actually preventing. And also we want to see what kind of buildings and infrastructure we would have saved by turning off the power to those circuits. Next slide. Now I do want to talk a little bit more about our past weather and how it's influencing our future weather. If you recall, back in 2022 and 2023, those were really quite wet years. And as a result, we really didn't have a lot of PSPS events, and especially not as long as we've been seeing recently. But what that did cause is a lot of vegetation to really grow and become more dense during that time period. And then once we got into 2024, as you're all aware, the conditions turned much drier, and we started seeing some of these stronger wind events at the same time. So we started seeing a lot more increase in those PSPS events. And unfortunately, those drier conditions did extend into the beginning of the 2025 year and really gave us the really strong PSP events we saw then. Next slide. So what does this year look like? Well, we do expect another active fire season this year, and that's all due to the lack of precip that we have. And you can see on the right there is our drought monitor. A lot of Southern California is already in a severe drought, and those drought conditions are expected to migrate further north as the summer does go on, because we don't expect to see much precipitation in the summer, as that is normal for our territory. We don't see a lot of precipitation in the summer. Our rains usually come in the late fall and the winter time. We also do see chances of thunderstorms that could form from monsoonal moisture, not really giving us a lot of rain, but it could also be a source of ignition from dry lightning. And another thing we're going to have to be really concerned about as we get closer into the fall is that most of the vegetation types will have, if they haven't already, dried out, and that will support larger fire activity. And we are already, as you're well aware as well, are engaged in small and medium PSPS events as we speak. And I think that ends my presentation here. So I will pass it over to Ted Gribble and Jude Schneider for a PSPS operations update.
Hi there. Sorry about that. Looking for the mute button. I'm here. Sorry, Jude. My name's Ted Gribble. I'm a manager in our PSPS programs area. And go ahead, Jude.
No, why don't you take it away with the next slide, Ted?
Okay. Oh, okay. Gotcha. So really quick before we go to the next slide, to de-energize a circuit, we look at two separate criteria. The first is our fire potential index, or FPI, which considers how significant a fire could be based on the vegetation, moisture, humidity, and wind. The other criteria that we look at is the wind speed itself, where we start to have concerns about sparks from our infrastructure due to things like blowing into our lines, trees falling into our lines, etc. And if you go to the next slide now, ahead of this wildfire season, we've implemented some changes that we discussed in our 2023 to 2025 wildfire mitigation plan. These changes will affect the FPI wind speed criteria and are designed to account for broader fire weather concerns, as Paul just described, and extreme wind events. When we do these changes and we apply them to the weather that we saw in 2024, our analysis suggests that PSPS events could be 20 to 40% longer and potentially twice as large for certain weather patterns. Now, in addition to these protocol changes, this year there will be more customers subject to PSPS. In 2024, we filed a petition with the California Public Utilities Commission to revise the high fire risk area boundaries, and that resulted in 32 new hits, including up to 47,000 customers that are now potentially in scope for PSPS that previously were not. After the events of January, we've done additional risk modeling, and those model updates suggest that even more areas should be added to the high fire risk area. And while we're in the process of a detailed review, that could result in another 123,000 customers potentially being subject to PSPS moving forward. Lastly, while this is something that we first implemented in 2024, we've been forming our process related to what we call 24/7 monitoring. This is where we can see unforecasted extreme weather pop up suddenly and potentially warranting a de-energization to keep our community safe. In these instances, it's not likely that we'll have time to notify customers in advance of the de-energizations, but we will follow up with notifications as soon as possible if it occurs. With that, I'll pass it over to Jude, who will talk a little bit more about our FPI, wind speed criteria, and how we execute PSPS.
Thank you, Ted. Let's move to the next slide. I'm going to try and make a little more sense even of what Ted had talked about, with a little more discussion of how it is that we come to our decisions and how we operate during PSPS events. To introduce myself more fully, I am the External Engagement Lead in our Business Resiliency Unit. So let me talk about the Fire Potential Index, which Ted hit on. This actually also goes back to what Paul was talking about, which is it's a formula we use to estimate the potential of fire ignition and spread. And the inputs for that are the live fuels that Paul mentioned that we test every 2 weeks. Dead fuel moisture, which is also something we get from testing and from modeling. And then the fire ignition and spread we pick up from those models that Paul mentioned. So we put all this together and we come up with a fire potential index, which is a number. And that number is from 1 to 17. In most parts of our territory, we had been de-energizing when that number hit 13. There were some parts of our service territory where it would hit 12, and on Catalina we had an 11 because of the egress issues and the way the island is configured. What we're looking at is when there is significant risk of fire, lowering the fire potential index at which we would make de-energization decisions. So this is a threshold. We also have the wind speed thresholds, and the wind speed threshold for activation is based on 2 numbers. For conductor that doesn't have cover on it, it would be a wind speed of 31 miles per hour or gusts of 46 miles per hour, which is the National Weather Service wind advisory warning level or advisory level. For circuits that are fully covered, we look at sustained wind speeds of 40 miles per hour or gusts of 58 miles per hour. And we'll talk a little more later in the presentation about covered conductor. But these are some of the things that are the decision points for our thresholds. Wind speed is determined separately for each circuit based on the specific risks of the event. And we are looking at whether these are appropriate and in large events, and when we have a significant number of circuits or a significant number of fire risks. We're also going to start looking at de-energizing at triggers, which are potentially lower than these activation thresholds. So that's sort of part of the work that Ted has described. All of this is covered in a technical paper that is available at sc.com/PSPS, and it goes through the formula, and it goes through the reasoning, and it goes through some more of the details in a technical way, and that is available to everybody. Let's move to the next slide. I think that many on the call here will find this slide familiar. This is our notification timeline, our cadence. And there's one change that I want to bring to your attention this year, which is we had previously let our public safety partners know 3 days in advance. And starting this year, we're giving all customers notifications at 3 days out. This does a couple things for us, one of which is many of our customers were getting notifications from their counties or their jurisdictions, and we weren't sharing the information till a day later. So now everything is on the same cadence. It also gives us an extra day to try and reach our medical baseline or critical care customers if they haven't received their original notifications. We do a secondary notification process, and this gives us a little more time. Then we notify again 2 days ahead, 1 day ahead. I want to talk a little about our expected shutoff notification. We send this 1 to 4 hours before we anticipate shutting off power. Now, we used to renew this every 4 hours if customers were still anticipated to be in this high risk of de-energization period. However, our customers and our public safety partners finally sort of said uncle to us. Nobody wanted this many notifications because they were coming every 4 hours, day or night. So now we want our customers to be aware that if we've sent you this notification, you're at this higher level of expectation until the end of the event. Then we'll shut off power and we'll send a notification. This is helpful, especially for those accounts that don't have physical homes on them, or to know whether the power's been shut off. We will also send a notification immediately prior to our to re-energization to let customers know that we are starting the re-energization process. And I'm going to talk a little more about that on the next slide. And then the last notification is power restoration, or if your power was not turned off, we will send you a notice of cancellation that the event is over. Let's go to the next slide. We've talked a lot about the forecasting and modeling and calculating, but I also want you to know that we have people out in the field who are looking and feeling and seeing what's in the neighborhoods. And this is really important to us. So there are two types, there's actually three, and I'll talk about the third in a second, but there are two types of field operations that I want to bring to your attention on this slide. Pre-patrol. We go out up to 5 days before the event happens, and we look for hazards. And we identify if there are any equipment conditions. On this last event, we went out in the field and we saw a tree that was dead that was close by, and a line that might have been de-energized, and we sent someone out and we cut that down. So that that reduces the fire risk and reduces the risk of PSPS. We identify also whether there's any equipment that needs fixing, and if we can, we get out there to fix it in advance. Then we send out live field observers, and you'll see that's a live field observer there with his binoculars, and he's looking at field conditions during the event. He has a handheld weather station called a Kestrel, which is on a stick. Sticks are mounted to the trucks, and they can go up or down. They can see whether the wind is as active, higher or lower than the speeds that we're seeing on the pole tops. And they can look for damage. They can see if damage has already occurred and monitor winds, and also monitor for conditions that would be out of the ordinary that are worth calling in. Next slide. So now I want to talk about restoration, and we have a little video to show you. But let me bring your attention first to the photos here. These are from our January 4th event. These are in our post-event report. And by the way, the post-event report is on the CPUC website. You can look for it there, and it will have these photos. So this is some damage they found. You can see that they found wires down. That some of it, you'll see 3 of them were found during daytime, and then the 4th one was found at night. Let's actually play the video, because I think the video will give you a little more sense of how we do our restoration patrols.
We just got okay to re-energize this section of line. This was off for PSPS, and in order to do so, we had to complete a post-patrol, which requires us to look at all the power lines. As we drive by, we're looking at all the overhead for damage after the winds have come and gone. We want to inspect the line 100% to make sure there's nothing wrong, and that takes time. A common question we get is, the wind's gone, but the power's still not on. Well, there's a period of time that we're doing these post patrols, and the post patrol requires us to physically look at all the power lines that are in the community that's off and make sure there's no hazards. You know, we're looking for down wires. We're looking for things that may have broken our infrastructure in the wind, because that could all create a hazard when we re-energize a line and possibly create a fire. We love getting the power back on after something's happened, and that's what we're here to do. But we have to do it in a safe manner.
All right, I wanted to go over the single most popular question we have, which is, why does my neighbor have power when I don't? And what we wanted to draw for you is an AI neighborhood that demonstrates how the guy in the corner on the orange, who's in the inset there, is on a circuit that goes through a tier 2 high fire risk area. And so we have to turn his power off, because we can't turn off power above him and keep the power on below him. So we can't move him, because you'll see that the lines don't connect. It's frustrating, but that would be why this customer has is sort of in the unlucky neighborhood that he would be de-energized. you know, it's the way our circuitry was built. It was built long before PSPS. It was built to accommodate load, resiliency, and we are doing what we can to adjust to allow customers to be switched from one circuit to another. In many cases, we can do that, but in this case, this fictional case, this wasn't possible. Next slide. I want to pick up on something Jendi mentioned. She mentioned our QRF force of aerial firefighting assets, including the world's largest helitankers. And they also they were the only, I don't know if they're still the only, but they were certainly the first helitankers that had nighttime firefighting capability. And between January and May, we sent them up 34 times to respond to 9 fires. And the helicopters spend about 22 hours in the air at night and 10 hours during the day. And there's a Chinook that is associated with them that spent 54% of its time up in the air at night. And this has been very effective at supporting our firefighters, because during the night when the winds are down, you can make the most progress. But previously we haven't been able to actually get up there at night to fight the fires. So we're really happy to be able to partner with all the jurisdictions in SCE service area in support of the QRF. Anyway, this is my last slide, and I will be staying on to answer questions, as will Ted. But now I want to bring up my colleague Rosa Perea to talk about customer programs and services. Thanks all.
Thank you, Jude. Good evening, everyone. My name is Rosa Perea, Senior Manager of our PSPS Customer Support and Accessibility Team. Thank you all for joining us today. Next slide. We recognize that PSPS can be disruptive, and our goal is to ensure all of our customers are equipped with the information and tools available to support you before, during, and after these events. SCE uses a whole community approach to help disseminate information and ensure customers and communities are prepared for PSPS events. We collaborate with local and tribal governments, public safety partners, critical infrastructure providers, and community-based organizations. Here are 4 key ways that we can all work together to improve community resiliency. First, learn and share information about SCE's customer support programs with your family, friends, and neighbors. Improve your resiliency and emergency preparedness, both personal and commercial. Ensure your household and emergency contact info is updated with SCE for timely notifications during PSPS. And promote awareness and stay informed. So we encourage you to visit sce.com/PSPS during the events. Also to attend the Wildfire Safety Community Meetings throughout the year, like the one we're hosting tonight. And to look for our annual PSPS newsletter that is sent to all customers in high fire risk areas. Next slide. Okay. We have several programs and resources to support customers during PSPS. We open community resource centers and deploy community crew vehicles. And if you're not familiar with these, the community resource centers are indoor temperature controlled centers with snacks, water, charging stations, and resiliency kits. We also provide additional support for customers with access and functional needs. For example, individuals who may need additional assistance due to any condition that limits their ability to act in an emergency. The community crew vehicles are mobile vans that offer similar resources as the in outdoor locations when suitable indoor space is not available. We also partner with 211, who offers free and confidential 24/7 care coordination, emergency planning, and referrals for food, transportation, and accommodations. We work with Disability Disaster Access and Resources, a program managed by the California Foundation for Independent Living Centers, to support elderly and disabled customers, especially those that use medical devices. DDAR provides hotel assistance, transportation, and long-term battery loans. We encourage our customers to dial 211 or use the 211 Now Care Coordination app for personalized support. The Medical Baseline Program is an assistance program for residential customers who require the regular use of electrically powered medical equipment or other qualifying medical devices, for example, oxygen generators, motorized wheelchair, or a CPAP machine. There is no income requirement, and the program helps offset electricity costs for customers that use medical equipment. If we can't reach customers who are enrolled in Medical Baseline during a PSPS, through their contact information on file, we will follow up with an in-person visit as necessary. So please help us spread the word. Enrollment in the Medical Baseline Program is critical for those customers that qualify. We offer several programs to help customers improve their resiliency as well. The Critical Care Backup Battery Program provides free battery plus a solar panel for qualifying customers enrolled in our Medical Baseline Program that reside in a high fire risk area. And the in-event loan battery pilot loans out temporary batteries during a PSPS event through 2-in-1 for customers that have not enrolled in the Critical Care Backup Battery Program. We also offer rebates on portable batteries and generators for customers that reside in high fire risk areas, including $150 for portable batteries, $200 to up to $600 for generators, and rebates for whole home battery systems through the Self-Generation Incentive Program. These programs are especially important for income qualified and customers with access and functional needs. Next slide. So at the start of the meeting, Jendi shared some important tips to prepare for extended outages. And I'd like to share some additional reminders to help us all be prepared for PSPS. First, we encourage you to confirm if you or your family members qualify for the Medical Baseline or Critical Care Backup Battery Program. These programs provide additional support and notifications for those who rely on electricity for their medical needs. You should ensure that you have key phone numbers for doctors and family members easily accessible. It's important to learn how to open garage doors and gates manually, because if the power is out, those systems won't work. And familiarize yourself with your home's utility shutoff points, electricity, gas, water, and know how to turn them off and back on safely. If you're considering installing a home generator, you should always consult a licensed electrician to ensure it's installed safely and in compliance with local codes. And finally, create a family emergency plan if you don't have one yet, and make sure that you have emergency kits and go bags ready. Some essential items to include are first aid kits, water, non-perishable food, external batteries, and medications. These simple but important steps can make a big difference in staying safe and resilient during PSPS. In the bottom left corner of the slide, you'll find information to help you download emergency preparedness guides that are available from SCE, the American Red Cross, the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services, and the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Next slide. So to ensure our communities stay informed during PSPS, SCE provides notifications by email, text, and voice calls based on customers' preferences. Address level alerts are also available so that non-SCE account holders can stay informed. Customers should visit the SCE Customer Preference Center to update their contact information and manage how they receive notifications. And non-SCE account holders can sign up for address-specific alerts at SCEPSPS.com. On our outage map, that also not just has the regular outage information, but it also incorporates PSPS outages. And you can find that at sce.com/outage map. And the map also includes the locations of community resource centers, community crew vehicles, EV charging stations, hotel assistance, and food banks. So that concludes my update on customer programs and resources. And now I'm going to pass it over to Ray Fugere for the next topic.
Thank you, Rosa. So as mentioned, my name is Ray Fugere. I'm the Director of Asset and System Intelligence here at Southern California Edison. And I'm going to be highlighting some of the work we've done on our wildfire mitigation and grid hardening work that kind of helps to reduce the likelihood or the need for PSPS and also reduces the likelihood of wildfires associated with the SCE facilities. But before I go into that, I just want to give a little more background. Every 3 years, we file what we call our Wildfire Mitigation Plan, or short, WMP, with the state of California. This plan is very important because it outlays all the work that SCE is going to undertake to reduce the likelihood of wildfires, started with our facilities, and also reduce the need of PSPS. And it's really important. Right now, we're operating under our plan that was filed, and it covers the years 2023 through 2025. Earlier this year in May, we just filed our next 3-year plan, which will cover years 26, 27, and 28. That plan is currently being reviewed and evaluated by the state of California. Now, this plan is really complex and large, but it boils down to 4 key pieces. 1, grid hardening. How are we going to make the grid more resilient for weather and other factors? This is really important because we want to stop things and make it much more resilient so we don't have to rely on shutting off power or PSPS. 2, bolstering situational awareness capabilities. And Paul did an excellent job at describing all those efforts we are doing to understand more and more about our system. The next is enhancing operational practices. This is how do we inspect our lines? How do we maintain the vegetation around our lines? How are we operating our PSPS? How do we get better at that? And we're really driving to it. But the last one is really the foundation to how we're doing all this work. It's harnessing the power of data and technology. There's so much more information that we have now and so much more data that we can use in technology that we're leveraging this to make sure we are making the best decisions we can for our customers. And we're really taking this information and making really good decisions with it. So if we could go to the next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, it's not advancing on my end. Back 1 slide to jump 2. Okay, well, the slide, okay. As that's pulling up, I'll just start. So the first thing we're doing on grid hardening is cover conductor. So cover conductor is basically overhead electric wire that's covered. Most wire that's on our poles and wires is bare. And we're upgrading this wiring to what's called cover conductor. And what that does is basically it has plastic or an insulation around the wire. And the great thing about this is in the event if something flies into those lines or the wire slap or a car hits a pole and the wire falls to the ground, it reduces the likelihood of an ignition occurring. It really helps and has other benefits. We're seeing less outages where we've deployed cover conductor. So we're getting a lot of other benefits from this. Now, we're not just upgrading the cover conductor. Can we go back 1 slide? Thank you. We're not just updating the cover conductor. So whenever we install conductor, there's always there's connections that have to be made from wire. And so what you have to do is you have to strip that covering off. And so we're covering wherever we have to strip that covering to make an electrical connection. This occurs when you connect to a transformer or you're connecting wires to wires because at some point, you know, the reels which they're on. And so we're covering all of this to make it more resilient. Now, we've installed over 6,400 miles of cover conductor. This is out of approximately a little less than 10,000 miles that we have in our high fire areas. So to put this in perspective of how many miles this is like flying from Los Angeles to Auckland, New Zealand. So crossing the whole Pacific Ocean. Or just to think more locally, this would be like taking a plane, flying to DC, back to LA, and then back to DC. So 3 trips across the country. And we've done all of this work in a short time. We've really launched this program in 2019. So we are really making great strides in reducing that risk. The next hardening we're doing is fire-resistant poles and wrapped poles. What these are is fire-resistant poles, or poles that have a fire-resistant wrapping on it, can withstand if a fire for whatever cause comes into that area. It's not going to burn down the pole. The pole will stay up in the air. This has a lot of benefits. The first benefit is the poles aren't falling over and potentially blocking roadways, regardless of why the fire occurred. The second big thing is once the fire is over, we're able to install or reinstall the power much faster because the poles withstood the damage. So this is really having multiple benefits. And so we're deploying more and more of those types of poles throughout our system. As we continue on, the next way that we do hardening is we're installing better protective devices across our system. And I want to explain, there's a couple that we're doing. One is we're installing faster acting fuses on our system. What this faster acting fuse does is when it detects a fault condition or an abnormality on the electrical system, it will operate faster. And when the fuse operates faster, it shuts off the power. The quicker we can shut off the power, the less likelihood there is to be a spark that could result in an ignition. On top of that, we've updated what our circuit breakers, very similar to what you have at your house, a circuit breaker that shuts off the power when it senses something abnormal on the system, it shuts it off. We're making those a little faster when there's fire weather conditions present. So in case something does happen, we want to reduce that time to reduce that energy that's released to stop a fire from occurring. So those are some of the ways we're updating protective systems. But there's also something else we're doing. We're also installing something that we've learned, and it's called Rapid Earth Fault Current Limiter, or REVCL for short. This is a technology that is used throughout Australia to reduce wildfires. We've partnered with our Australian utility peers, learned this technology, and we're starting to deploy this throughout our system. What this technology does is it senses the wires, and it can sense a voltage fluctuation on the wires and can shut off power extremely quick. We have done laboratory testing, and we have dropped wires onto dry brush in a laboratory environment, and it's not lighting it on fire. So we're deploying more and more of this to really get extra benefit. And we're looking to partner this with cover conductors so we can get a really good mitigation effectiveness. The next thing we're doing is targeted undergrounding. As the name implies, we're doing very localized undergrounding. We're focused on areas that have very high risks, and I'll talk more in detail in those in a second, but we want to underground those lines to nearly eliminate all wildfire risk in those areas. And so we have a program that will run through 2028 right now to do very specific locations to underground those miles. We've done about 40 miles system-wide so far, and we're aiming to do 30 plus miles this year. And we're looking to ramp that program up into the hundreds of miles in the next coming years. Last, and definitely not least, is transmission hardening. We're currently deploying strategies to harden our transmission system, such as larger spacing between conductors, bigger insulators, to make that system more robust so it can withstand higher winds and also reduce the likelihood of a wildfire occurring. So that's just some of the few mitigations we're deploying for hardening our electric system. Now, there's a lot of work to do in this space. As I mentioned, we have about 10,000 miles of distribution lines. So we had to come up with an approach to address this. So if we could move to the next slide, please. Thank you. We took a very data-centric approach. And so we looked at very different models and a lot of information to make sure we're deploying our mitigations in the appropriate areas and prioritizing them correctly. We looked at the fire risk areas, where our circuits were, fuel conditions, which basically, fancy word to say is what's the vegetation in the area, the population density, and also structure or building densities. We took that information and we modeled that, and we came up with we subdivided our high fire area into 3 areas. The first is severe risk areas, and these are the riskiest areas that we see on our system. And there's some variables we really looked at. One, egress constraints, which basically means if a fire did occur, could people who live there get out fast enough? Are there a lot of entry and exit ways in and out of that community? Extreme high wind areas. Will the winds exceed our cover conductor thresholds for PSPS? And extreme consequence areas. Where can you see a large fire occur? In those areas, that's where we are looking at, if it hadn't been hardened yet, to do our targeted undergrounding to really reduce those risks of wildfires. The next is high consequence areas. These are locations that you could see a fire get to about 300 acres in 8 hours based upon simulations to a little less than 10,000 acres. And in that range, we're looking to install cover conductor. We're also looking at locations where it exceeds our bare wire PSPS thresholds. We're upgrading that to cover conductor as well. And then other HFRA areas. These are areas that don't meet those other 2 locations. So we're working to harden those areas naturally over time. Our main focus has been to harden the severe risk and high consequence areas first, to buy down that risk for our customers that we serve. Now, that comes from a model. A model gives you great information, but we are not solely relying on the models. Every mile that we have in our high fire system, we have had a team of experts, engineers, our fire scientists, review those miles to make sure we are deploying the appropriate mitigation in those areas. And we did this by doing examinations based upon photos, satellite imagery, the actual field conditions, local weather specific conditions. So we are doing this to make sure we are adequately addressing that risk. We also took in the time to deploy mitigations. This is one of those things that I want people to understand is cover conductor, we're able to deploy it very quickly and have been able to execute up to 1,500 miles in a year versus undergrounding, which takes a lot longer because there's civil digging work in there. That could sometimes take 3-4 years to deploy. So we looked at that as well to make sure we're buying down that risk as fast as we can for our customers. So we want to make sure we looked at both of those factors. And if we could go to the next slide. So just want to go through some of the numbers so far. As I mentioned, we've deployed about 6,400 plus miles of cover conductor, and we're constantly deploying more. This year, we're aiming to install minimally another 500 miles of cover conductor. Since 2019, we've trimmed or removed over 2.5 million trees. Just in our high fire area, we're maintaining 800,000 trees. So that means on average, every tree has been trimmed about 3 times over that time period. We've done over 1.5 million inspections in our HFRA area. This is from looking at them both from the ground and the air through the use of drones as well. And you can see we've done 1.5 million. We have about 300,000 structures in our high fire area. So we've inspected each structure on average about 5 times over this time period. Paul's already mentioned the weather stations and the cameras. So we have those as well. And we also have our community resource vehicles there as well. So we are really actively trying to mitigate these risks. And with that, I will turn it back to Rosa for the Q&A portion. Rosa?
Thank you, Ray. And thank you to all our presenters for sharing important information with our customers today. The chat has been pretty busy. I see our staff's been supplying responses to some of the more frequently asked questions, but we do have some other ones that we are just going to answer live now. As a reminder, due to the volume of attendees and questions, the raise your hand feature will not be utilized in this meeting. So please ask your question in the chat. and we will try and get through as many as we can. Then if you have any questions that are specific to your neighborhood, please email us or put them in the Q&A, but include your email address, and we will follow up with you directly. So let me go through one question I wanted to make sure we covered first. Somebody asked, Walker asked, will the recording be available for those who could not attend? And the answer is yes. Following today's meeting, a copy of the presentation will be posted on SCE.com and along with the recording, and then additionally an email will be sent to everyone who registered for the meeting with a copy of the presentation as well. So thank you for that question, Walker. And then the next question I have here was submitted on email, and we got a couple that were pre-submitted, I think, on email. The question is, why are PSPS events required in California and very few other places in the rest of the country? So Ted, I'm going to ask you to respond to that one.
Sorry, can you hear me? I was lagging there as it came off. So actually, PSPS is a practice that's used up and down the West Coast. It's also used now in Hawaii, Colorado, Texas, possibly other states. And as the scope and scale of wildfire risk is increasing and becoming more well understood by other electricity providers and utilities, there are many of those utilities that are considering adopting very similar practices, whether they call it PSPS or not. But it is something that started in California, but is definitely spreading.
Thank you, Ted. And the next question is also for you. What is required to end or significantly reduce PSPS events? As a leading innovator, shouldn't California have a power grid that doesn't have to be shut down every time it gets windy?
So yeah, we don't want to do PSPS. Believe me, it is very difficult to do, and that's why we're working really hard to deploy all the advanced technologies that Ray described: cover conductor, undergrounding, the REFCL, rapid earth fault current limiters, and numerous other technologies that help reduce the risk of wildfires being sparked by the grid. And as we reduce that risk, we use PSPS less. Now, don't get me wrong, there's many other stakeholders involved in reducing wildfire risk, and we're also working with them. But that's where we are right now. In order to keep our community safe, PSPS is still necessary.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to combine the next two for Ray. Haven't there been numerous significant rate increases to fund the actions necessary to address the need for PSPS? And if the rate increases have been levied, how many have there been? How much money has been collected, and how much has been spent on the actions necessary to address the event?
Yeah, I don't have the specifics on that, but because you emailed that question, we'll definitely look into it. I do not know how much money was collected off the top of my head for PSPS, but I will say this, that SCE is actively working to reduce the need, as Ted mentioned, for PSPS and drive down the wildfire risk. It is a lot, but when we look at it, the action of not doing something could be more. So we need to make sure that we are actively and continually driving down that risk, because as you could see from that slide that was shown at the start of this, wildfires have significantly got worse in California. So we need to make sure that we are constantly addressing that risk and taking the necessary steps to reduce risks for the communities that we serve.
Thank you. Ted, this one is for you. When will PSPS events finally end in California? Could it be years or decades?
Yeah, I tried to answer this in the prior question too, or touched on it. For the foreseeable, PSPS will likely be one of the tools in the toolbox to help wildfire risk. But again, as mentioned, we're working really hard, investing heavily in upgrades and technology necessary to reduce the risk, not have to use PSPS to eliminate the risk.
Okay, thank you, Ted. And then one more for you from Lisa. Are drones used for patrols?
Yeah, they absolutely are used for patrols, and that's something that we're looking to expand upon significantly moving forward. We're sort of buying them as soon as they're coming off the assembly line, and getting tens of our field personnel to to do all sorts of things, but especially to help expedite restoration following the subsidence of the dangerous weather conditions.
Okay, thank you. Ray, back to you. Question from Joe Romo. In the past 5 days, we've had 2 power shutoffs, and we're going on our 2nd day of no power. How long does SCE plan to rely on power shutoffs as a solution to wildfire risk? Is a short-term band-aid or your long-term strategy?
So it's PSPS is always going to be a tool in our toolbox, and it is one of our it's the thing we don't want to do. But there are some times that the weather is so extreme that there could be a catastrophic wildfire. So we are going to use that. However, as I mentioned, we are continuing to harden our grid to reduce those risks and likelihood of wildfire. So we are deploying cover conductor. We're doing undergrounding. We are installing faster acting fuses, updating our circuit breakers to have better protection. So we're doing all these things to reduce that reliance on PSPS. So we will be continually hardening our system to try to reduce those impacts of it. But if weather occurs that is so extreme and represents a risk to our customers, it will be a measure that we do use to make sure we are protecting our customers.
Okay, thank you. Jude, this one is for you. From Christy Russell. How do we find out if we're going to be on an expanded circuit?
You're on mute, Jude. Sorry.
The customers who are on those 32 expanded circuits will have heard, they will have gotten an email or letter from us explaining that they are now in high fire risk areas and on a PSPS potential circuit.
Okay, thank you, Jude. And then I have one, I think the initials are SIG or SJG. This one's for you too, Jude. We are not in a designated high fire area. SC keeps shutting off our power. Many on our street are never shut off. There's a power transformer terminal that was hardened but never taken off the addresses that should be left alone. Our street gets shut down and homes 5 houses away never got shut down. This has been a mistake and very frustrating.
You're muted again, Jude. Sorry.
Okay, I'm an idiot. I think there might be a similar question, Rosa, as well about customers who are undergrounded. I'd love to address both of those at once. But let me start. I'm going to, if it's okay, I'm going to take over the screen. I want to share something with you that's actually I just saw for the first time today. Give me a second here. So this is an actual circuit in Temecula area, and we shared this with the Mayor Pro Tem and staff today. And this is sort of a real life version of the thing that I shared you, sort of a fictional version of. So I wanted to walk you through it because this answers sort of all of the questions about why did you turn us off when you didn't turn off our neighbors. So you'll see here on the left of your screen, you'll see a neighborhood. And in fact, this neighborhood is undergrounded. They don't even have wires. But you'll see that their power is coming from something called the PSPS sub, which is up there on the top right. So in order to reach them, it goes through this high fire risk area, which is designated by that orange. So we will have to turn that off if we have high winds, dry vegetation, high risk of fire, to protect all of the neighbors on that long circuit between the PSPS sub and the edge of the high fire risk area. So you see there's like no way to get power to those particular customers, even though they're undergrounded. So that's the frustration there. And we share it, and we are trying to think of ways to move some of these customers who are undergrounded to other circuits when we can. We have switching operations when we can. Here, you don't see another circuit in this map. Presumably, there is some other circuit nearby because there's a lot of other homes there. So that's what it looks like. And that's really the answer to why did you turn off my power when either A, it's not windy, or B, my neighbor's power are on. It's really the relationship between your neighborhood and the substation that serves you and where the lines have to travel before they serve you. So that kind of, I think there are a couple questions in the chat that are sort of similar, and hopefully this real life example will show you kind of what we're up against and why this happens. And you can take it back, Barbara, the screen. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Jude. All right, I'm scrolling through the questions. Matt, James, am I missing any other questions? I need a second set of eyes, please.
Yes, we have a question from Sandra Behrens. We haven't had a chance to post it, but her question is, will a whole house generator be affected by a power outage?
I can try to take that if you'd like. Depending on connected, hypothetically, no, it would not be. That's the point of a whole house generator. They can provide a backup source of power when the service from the utility is lost. It needs to be connected safely. You should ensure that you're using a licensed electrician and have that work permitted. Also, just as a public safety announcement here, do not run gas power generators indoors. I know that goes without saying for most of us, but we've seen tragic incidents where that occurs.
And another safety add here is if your whole house generator is generating more than one building and you have wires between the buildings, when we re-energize, you need to make sure that your wires are all secure and safe.
Thank you. I think I just saw another one come through from Stacy. I serve on the Topanga Town Council. Is there a way for SCE to put a resident or business circuit number and sub-segment numbers on the individual's phone bill? That would be really helpful knowing this information during a power outage. Thank you. Ted, do you want to take that one?
I'm sorry, would you mind repeating it? I was trying to read through some of these other ones that are popping through. I really apologize for that, but if you don't mind.
I can read it. It's from Stacy Sledge. I serve on the Topanga Town Council. Is there a way for SCE to put a resident or business circuit number and sub-segment number on an individual's phone bill? This would be helpful knowing this information during a power outage.
Okay, I think what I'm hearing is more information to the customer, and in this case is asked on the bill with like the circuit name, the segment, and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
we'll have to take that back and see what's possible in the bill space. I know that there's regulations that govern what can and can't be included on the bill. But I will say we are working very quickly to improve the amount of information that's available to customers when they visit our website, including the circuit that you're on, including ways to see what the situation is as far as wind speed and such goes around your area. So keep looking there if you're affected by PSPS for better information.
I wanted to add that we are going to be providing the circuit names on sc.com on the pop-ups for each one of the PSPS events in the polygons. So you will see the name of the circuit.
Thank you, Ted and Jude. And Jude, back to you. Christine had a comment. I understand the answer, Jude, but how can we know when this will be fixed? Do you have a timeline?
I think that really kind of goes back to what Ted was saying, and the question is, when will we end PSPS? I think, or if you're talking about the sort of switching issues, sometimes there's very little we can do, because the way that we have been set up is for overall system resiliency and load balance, and we do try when we can, and with our covered conductor and with our targeted undergrounding, to address those kind of anomalies. But there are a lot of anomalies, and also our system is dynamic, so things change for various reasons all the time. So we're never going to be able to get to a place where we don't have some customers who are out because they're at the edge of an area that is subject to high fire risk area issues, even if they're just outside, or even if they're undergrounded. So we try, and we're sensitive to it, but it's not a solve yet.
Thank you, Jude. I have one more for Ted. How does most of the rest of the country operate power safely without PSPS?
So I mentioned this, but most of the rest of the country doesn't have the extreme high fire risk that California has. There are, though, other portions of the that do have that risk, and you've seen those fires occur over decade, 5 years, and as you get sort of more closer to current time, you've seen particularly devastating fires in Hawaii, in Colorado, in Texas, up in Oregon recently, and those utilities are all looking at PSPS now as well. And we're even seeing forest fires out in the East Coast and the Northeast, in areas that I don't think any of us had that on our bingo card. But this is just the world that we're living in right now, and this is a necessary tool for us to help reduce the risk to our communities. But nobody likes to do it.
No, we do not. And then there was a second question also from David Escanos. How can we help put an end to the need for PSPS?
This is a little bit over my skis, but frankly, there's a lot that can be done in the public space to advocate for wildfire risk reduction measures, vegetation management, things like that. And all of that contributes to reducing the wildfire risk, which is what we're also trying to address with PSPS. So anything that you could do, talking to your electeds and others to encourage more active mitigations, is a good idea.
Thank you, Ted. Matt, James, anything else that has come through?
There's a question from Christine regarding the WMP for specific areas, and she asks, will I be able to look up when SCE anticipates completing our grid hardening, especially since our subdivision is complete underground? It was part of a mellow roost when our development was approved.
So I'll take that. The WMP specifically doesn't say areas. It talks about how we're prioritizing which areas how we're prioritizing our methodology and how many miles we're going to do as time. We do post what our plan is at the county level on our website, but we don't have the details specifically to when certain areas will be hardened and the hardening measures. That right now isn't in the WMP or posted. We are looking at trying to get that posted, but that is not there yet.
Thank you. Okay. I'm waiting to see if another one came through.
I have one I want to answer. I don't know whether it was published or posted, but I liked it a lot, so I'd like to answer it. And somebody said, why is it that we keep talking about de-energization instead of shutoffs? And thank you for saying that. It's a good reminder because we do get really technical, and we should be saying shutoff instead of de-energization. 2 syllables instead of 4 or 5. So thanks for the reminder, and we'll try harder on that.
Okay, thank you, Jude. We're scanning the chat for more questions. James, any other ones that have come through?
Yes, a question from Ken P. All your communications rely on my having electricity because I need a computer. What is one to do?
One of the things that we would like to encourage you to do is to get a small portable battery. We have them available with discounts on our marketplace site, but absolutely, especially as we're moving into a season where we're going to have more PSPS, absolutely, we want to be your partners in resiliency. So please do get yourself a battery. One of the things that many folks do is you can use your car to charge your phone, and we encourage that. So yeah, we get it. And in fact, we have a lot of our colleagues who are losing their power during the PSPS shutoffs, and we're inconveniencing ourselves. So we get it. It's tough, and we really do encourage any resiliency efforts you can make. Also know that you could go to our CRCs where we do have power, and we have a certain resiliency zones where we have power, and there we have a charging station set up for you.
Thank you, Jude. Okay, any other questions?
There's one that popped up about just now being put in a fire area. Does this affect home insurance? SCE's designation of high fire risk area is not, as far as we're aware, not the same one that home insurance companies are using to dictate what your premium to be. There are other maps that are produced by the state, however, that likely used. And if you haven't yet, it may be worth looking at the fire hazard severity zone maps by CAL FIRE, which may give you some indication of whether now all of a sudden in a high fire area, which may affect your insurance. But that is not something that CE is in control.
Thank you. Okay, James, we're starting to come up on time. Are there any other questions that we can respond to before we close out?
No, I'm not seeing any additional questions that haven't already been answered.
Okay, thank you. All right, everyone. So thank you for all your great questions. This concludes the Q&A portion of our meeting. Thank you all for the questions and your feedback. We do appreciate it. And if there's any questions we may have missed, we will make sure to include the response in the post-meeting materials, along with some other frequently asked questions. So with that, let's welcome back Jendi to close out the meeting.
Thanks, Rosa and team, for the information that was shared today. I also want to take a moment to thank all of you on the call who took time out of your busy schedules to come here and learn more about PSPS events and how to be prepared for them. The slide you're seeing in the presentation right now has some helpful links and websites. We will be sharing this presentation material with you, so please keep a copy of the slide handy in case you need it for reference. And as Rosa mentioned, if you have a specific question that we didn't answer or that's specific to your area, you can grab the email from here and send us an email and we will get back to you. Thank you for your participation this evening. Using the QR code on the screen, if we go to the next slide. Feel free to complete the survey and provide feedback about the event. In addition, the survey link and presentation is going to be emailed to everyone that registered for the event. This meeting has also been recorded, and we will post the recording on our website in a few days, as well as other information and resources. So thank you again for attending, and have a great evening.